Before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, before the Snyderverse, before superhero movies ruled the box office, there was 1978's Superman. Directed by Richard Donner and led by the unforgettable Christopher Reeve, this wasn't just a blockbuster, it was the blueprint for every single superhero film that followed. It made audiences believe that a man could fly and made studios believe that comic books could mean serious business and serious money. And with a brand new Superman movie out this month, there's never been a better time to revisit the film that started it all. And it also has a very special meaning in my life. That's why I have the movie poster. So make sure you watch to the end so you can hear why Superman means so very much to me. So here are 5 wild behind-the-scene facts that you may not have known about the 1978 film Superman, including how Paul Newman nearly wore the cape himself, how Marlon Brando nearly played a bagel, and how the wonderful Christopher Reeve became a legend. But before we get into it, hello, my name is Cassidy Krieger. I am the founder of Hollywoodland Photos here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok. I think of this place as a little pocket corner of the internet that's dedicated to preserving the legends and the history of Hollywood. If you love Hollywood as much as me, make sure you hit the subscribe button and let me know in the comments below if you love this Superman movie, the 1978 version, or any of them as much as me. Number 5, Christopher Reeve's transformation from unknown to Superman. When Christopher Reeve was cast as Superman, many in Hollywood were skeptical. Who was this tall, lanky, relatively unknown actor being handed the most iconic role in comic book history? At the time, Reeve was just 24 years old and was best known for his stage and soap opera work. He stood at an impressive 6'4", but weighed only 189 pounds, so more Clark Kent than Superman. Even Richard Donner, the film's director, admitted he was unsure at first if Reeve could physically carry the role of Superman. But Reeve was determined to become the Man of Steel, not just through performance, but physically. He flew to London and began a rigorous body transformation under the guidance of none other than David Prowse, the bodybuilder who played Darth Vader in Star Wars, in suit, not the voice. Prowse had trained British Olympic athletes and knew exactly how to build size without compromising agility, crucial for a stunt-heavy shoot. For 2 months, Reeve trained intensely, 6 days a week, weightlifting for bulk, swimming for cardiovascular endurance, and fencing to build posture and precision. I need that, actually. He followed a high-protein, high-calorie diet that reportedly included steaks, eggs, protein shakes, and daily supplements. And his transformation was astonishing. By the time filming began, Reeve had gained 30 pounds of muscles, sculpting a physique that would become the image of Superman for generations. But what's more impressive? He did it without a muscle suit. While a lot of other superhero actors would rely on foam padding and costume trickery, Reeve insisted that his Superman be all natural. In fact, the special effects team had originally designed a padded suit to bulk him up, but by the time the cameras rolled, Reeve's body had outgrown it and they had to scrap the padding. But it wasn't just about the muscles. Reeve spent hours perfecting the physicality of Superman. His posture, his gait, the stance were inspired by classical statues, tall, noble, and graceful. He even changed his breathing pattern between Clark Kent and Superman, making his voice deeper and more resonant when in costume. It's so obvious. There's a particular scene where Clark takes his glasses off. He's around Lois and he wants to go, maybe I'll tell Lois I'm Superman. So he takes his glasses off and his posture, he becomes Superman in that second, and it's just such a subtle moment, but shows the genius of Christopher Reeve. It was a performance and a transformation that made the world believe that man could fly. Number 4, the flying effects were a groundbreaking achievement. You have to remember, this was the 1970s. There was no crazy CGI trickery, no green screens, no Marvel-style post-production wizardry, and yet Richard Donner made audiences believe a man could fly. That tagline wasn't clever marketing, although it was bloody brilliant. It was a mission, and the team behind Superman knew that if the flying didn't look convincing, the entire film was going to fall apart. Enter special effects supervisor Colin Chilvers, a man who approached the project like an inventor. He and his team didn't just build flying rigs, they engineered cinematic history. The first hurdle: how to suspend a 6'4" actor midair, sometimes for hours at a time without making it look obvious. The solution? Piano wire. Strong enough to hold, piano wire. Strong enough to hold Christopher Reeve, yet thin enough to be invisible on camera. But even that wasn't going to be enough, obviously. Wires were connected to an intricate motorized gimbal system that let Reeve tilt and roll mid-flight, almost like a human joystick. But to sell the illusion that he was actually flying, they had to think of everything, down to the movement of his cape. And here's where things get really interesting. The team rigged fishing rods under the cape, connected to tiny motors hidden in the costume or underneath the set. These motors were manually operated to create realistic flutters and ripples, mimicking how a cape would behave in flight. No fans, no wind machines, just ingenuity, precision timing, and fishing gear. And it worked. In the end, it wasn't just Reeves' performance that made you believe. It was the craftsmanship, the innovation, the relentless pursuit of how to make the impossible look possible and effortless. Number 3, casting Superman was no easy job. The hunt for the Man of Steel, it was massive. We know that Christopher Reeve got the part and played it to perfection. Before he was cast and chosen, Warner Brothers had other people in mind because they knew they were building more than just a movie, they were shaping a global icon. Robert Redford was approached, but he reportedly turned it down because he didn't want to be seen in a cape. Burt Reynolds was in the mix too, but he passed, not wanting to mess with a comic book role. And get this, Sylvester Stallone campaigned for it. Fresh off Rocky, he wanted to trade his boxing gloves for a cape. But the producers didn't quite see him fitting that clean-cut Kansas farm boy image and called him too ethnic, even though when you think about it, Superman is from a whole different planet and doesn't really matter. Anyway, that's for another time. Then comes the biggest what if of all. The one and only Paul Newman. Newman was offered his choice of roles, Superman, Lex Luthor, or Jor-El, with a then record-shattering offer of $4 million. That was astronomical in the 1970s. But Newman said no to all of them. Can you imagine Newman as Lex Luthor or Jor-El or even Superman? It would have been a wildly different film. I can't even begin to imagine it, to be honest. I don't think he's right for any of them. Maybe Jor-El, maybe, but thank God he said no. And then, of course, the casting team eventually shifted strategy, and here enters Christopher Reeve. At the time, he was a Juilliard-trained actor who'd done some stage work and soap operas, as we'd mentioned before, but he wasn't a household name. And at his first audition, he looked nothing like Superman. He was lanky, quiet, and not physically commanding yet. But when he read his lines, Donna knew that Reeve just understood Clark Kent's warmth and understood Superman's sincerity. And those two things mean more than the look. If you can build that, but the heart of Clark Kent and Superman is so important. And the filmmakers then knew that they had their man. And ironically, because Reeve was unknown, audiences didn't see an actor in a costume. When they saw him on the screen, they saw Superman. His unknownness gave him power. He was Clark Kent, he was Kal-El, he was Superman, and by the time the credits rolled, he certainly was not unknown anymore. Number 2, Marlon Brando's involvement was a little bit controversial. Yes, Marlon Brando, the godfather himself of both cinema and chaos. Brando was cast as Jor-El, Superman's Kryptonian father, and he was paid the then unprecedented $3.7 million plus a percentage of the film's profits, all for just 12 days of work and less than 20 minutes of screen time. That's a nice pay packet, I'd take it. But here's where things get even more wilder than that fact. Brando, by this point in his career, was a legend, and he had no interest in memorizing lines. He insisted that his dialogue be written on cue cards, sometimes even taped to other actors' costumes or hidden completely off camera. One time, he even had his lines stuck to baby Kal-El's diaper. Diaper? Nappy. You're trying to me going, I can't say diaper. Nappy. He wanted to act in the moment without the burden of preparation, which, as an actor myself, but he's Marlon Brando, he can do what he wants. Who am I to say, as an actor myself? I'm not Marlon Brando, please do what you want. He also had some really interesting ways of interpreting Jor-El. Brando told Richard Donner he didn't think Jor-El needed to appear on screen at all. He suggested that maybe the Kryptonian race didn't look human. What if, he said, Jor-El was actually a green glowing suitcase that just spoke telepathically, or even better, a floating bagel. Richard Donner apparently had to stop himself from laughing, but Brando was dead serious. Donner convinced him to stick with the traditional humanoid Jor-El appearance, but it wasn't easy. And yet, for the madness that Brando brought, his name also added an instant gravitas to the project. Warner Brothers used him to market this film heavily, even though he appears for barely 20 minutes. His casting signaled to the world, this isn't just a comic book movie, this is serious. He may have been unpredictable, he may have been frustrating, but one thing's for certain, no one ever forgot Brando's Jor-El. Not then, and not now. Number 1, a legacy cemented in history. When Superman hit theatres in 1978, the world didn't expect much. The idea of a serious superhero movie, most people laughed. Studios thought it was a gamble, critics braced for camp, audiences weren't sure what to expect at all. The very notion that a man in tights could lead a big budget film and make adults cry? Unthinkable. But then, it actually happened. Superman soared, literally and figuratively. The film grossed over $300 million worldwide, a staggering number for the time. Critics raved, audiences were swept away, and for the first time in cinema history, people genuinely believed a man could fly. The film pioneered genre filmmaking, blending drama, romance with Lois Lane, fantasy and cutting-edge effects with a surprisingly emotional core. And Reeves' portrayal wasn't just charming and superhero, it was human. And the legacy? Cemented in steel, if you will. In 2017, nearly 40 years later, the Library of Congress selected Superman for preservation in the National Film Registry, an honour reserved for films deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So that means Superman isn't just a great movie, it's a part of American history. And what about me? Well, I have 3 films in my life that I always say changed me for good. Moulin Rouge when I was 6, Wuthering Heights when I was 17, and Superman when I was 11. I remember watching this film one Saturday night in 2006 with my mum. I was enthralled. From the moment this film started, I was glued to that TV screen. And when it was over, I turned to my mum and I said, that was the best movie ever. Once again, and twice in my short life so far, I was only 11, a movie had changed my life. From then, I became obsessed with everything Superman. I have watched Smallville more times than I can count. The new Superman Returns film was coming out that year and I watched that more times than I can count. I thought Brandon Routh did an amazing job as Superman. I wish I'd done sequels with that. And my biggest dream was that I could one day play Lois Lane on the big screen. So I'm very jealous of the latest actress that's playing her in the new Superman movie. I hope she's good. Because honestly, I didn't even mention Margot Kidder in my script from before. Margot Kidder's portrayal of Lois Lane impacted me just as heavily as Christopher Reeve's portrayal of Superman. She was real, she was tough, she was funny, she was tender, she was everything that I thought a person, a woman, a love interest, but more than that, because she had a career and she was smart. I just thought she was everything and she didn't need saving. She never did. Superman came and saved her anyway, but she didn't need it. She could have saved herself. And I just loved Margot Kidder's portrayal of Lois Lane. For me, Margot Kidder's portrayal is my favourite. Erica Durant's in Smallville, I think she was probably so close to Margot Kidder's in perfection. I did see Man of Steel with Henry Cavill and Amy Adams, and I loved them both as actors and as human beings, but in that film, it was a disaster. I've only seen it once, and that's saying something. I just love Superman, and I'm so excited to see this new adaptation, this new storytelling. But for me, and I'm sure for many, many, many millions of people around the world, nothing will ever beat our first experience of Superman. The wonderful Christopher Reeve was not only an incredible Superman, but an incredible human as well. So that's my little nerd out on Superman. I don't really like a lot of superhero movies. I've never really gotten into the genre besides Superman. For me, he's a genre of his own. There's something remarkably special about Superman. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this Superman, but also the new Superman, which I'll be going to see this week. If you enjoyed these insights, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into cinematic history. And remember, it's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's the one and only Superman. I'll see you next time.